There are wounds I once thought I would carry for the rest of my life. But then I learned something profound from the Buddha. Forgiveness is not about whether the other person deserves it. It is about whether I deserve to be free. Have you ever been hurt, deeply hurt by someone you trusted with your whole heart? Not a stranger, not someone just passing through your life, but someone you loved, someone you believed in, someone you never imagined would cause you pain, and yet they did. They left, or they betrayed you, or they said something that pierced deeper than any physical wound could ever reach. Sometimes it only takes a familiar song, a certain scent, or a memory flickering in the corner of your mind, and suddenly you are back in that moment, feeling everything all over again. I understand, because I too once felt that forgiveness was impossible. I held on to my anger like a shield, thinking it would protect me from being hurt again. But all it did was exhaust me and keep me chained to a past I could never change. Then one day something in me began to shift. Not because I forgot what happened, not because I decided it did not matter, but because I realized I no longer wanted to carry the weight, and so began a journey. Not of forgetting, but of facing the pain and learning to let go. I once had a friend, not someone from childhood or someone I went to school with, but someone who grew with me through adulthood. We built our careers side by side. We helped each other through the rough patches of life. We shared worries about children, finances, and family. This person was not just a friend. They were family chosen, not given. We journeyed together for more than 10 years. We shared holidays, family gatherings, birthdays, and hospital visits. They were there through milestones and meltdowns alike. I believed with all my heart that if there was anyone who would never turn their back on me, it would be them, but life has its own way of teaching us. The break did not come with a loud argument. It was not a dramatic fallout. It was silence. It was distance. It was the quiet unraveling of something once so strong. One day I discovered that the things I had shared in confidence, my vulnerabilities and private moments, had been twisted and shared with others, people who had no business knowing. And what hurt even more was knowing that it came from the person I trusted most. I did not react with anger right away. At this age, we no longer explode over betrayal. We withdraw. We question ourselves. We carry the pain inward. I found myself doubting everything. Years of loyalty, support, and sacrifice. Were they all meaningless? I remembered helping this friend through the death of their father. I remembered staying up all night with their sick child. I remembered lending money when I barely had enough for myself, simply because they needed it. I never expected repayment, but I never imagined I would be repaid with betrayal. At this stage in life, pain does not come from lost love or unfulfilled dreams. It comes from losing trust in people we thought would always be there. It comes from realizing that no matter how much love you give, some things break and can never be mended. I thought that maybe I would never forgive them, not because of hate, but because I was simply too tired to open my heart again. And yet one day as I was cleaning out my bookshelf, I found an old journal. Inside I had written down a Buddhist teaching on forgiveness, and somehow something shifted inside me. I did not know yet if I could fully let go. But for the first time, the heaviness began to loosen, because I started to understand forgiveness is not about who deserves it. It is about choosing peace for yourself. I remember that time vividly. It was not just the pain of being betrayed. It was the feeling of being trapped, caught in a silent war between my anger and my vulnerability. I did not want to forgive, because in my mind, forgiving felt like saying everything was okay. But it was not okay. It hurt. It broke my trust. It took away a piece of who I was. Then one day I stumbled across a Dharma talk online. The voice of the monk was calm, almost whispering, but what he said struck me like lightning. He quoted the Buddha saying that holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. I froze, and for the first time in months I looked inward. really looked, I realized I was not punishing the other person with my anger. I was only punishing myself. Compassion is not weakness. Compassion is strength. It is what allows you to stop feeding pain and start healing your heart. The Buddha also taught that hatred is never ended by hatred. It is only ended by love. So I began to practice not forgiveness in a single day, but forgiveness in small broken pieces, like untangling threads in an old knotted cloth. I began to see the person who hurt me, not as a monster, but as someone lost in their own ignorance. Not to excuse them, but to stop casting myself as the eternal victim in my own story. I started journaling. Quietly, honestly, I wrote out everything I had held in each morning. I would sit in silence for 5 minutes, place my hand over my heart and whisper to myself, I send loving kindness to myself. I send loving kindness to the one who hurt me. Not to reconnect, but to be at peace. Slowly, something inside me began to soften. The sharp edges of my resentment began to smooth. The tight grip around my chest started to loosen, and I realized something within me was shifting. Forgiving does not mean forgetting. It means choosing not to let the past imprison you for one more day. And the moment I finally laid down my anger was the moment I began to feel alive again. Forgiveness is not a single act. It is a journey, sometimes long, often messy, and rarely straightforward. At first, I thought that once I had forgiven, everything would be fine, that the pain would disappear and peace would rush in like a river. But it did not happen that way. There were still days when my chest tightened at the thought of them. There were still nights when I lay awake wondering, could things have turned out differently? But the real shift was this. Those thoughts were no longer about them, they were about me. Gradually, I began to notice a change within myself. It started with sleep. I used to wake up in the middle of the night with my heart pounding and my mind spinning, but slowly my sleep became deeper. Lighter, I stopped dreaming about the past. Then came the conversations. I no longer needed to tell people the whole story to prove that I was right. I did not flinch when someone mentioned their name. And most importantly, I stopped living in defense mode. I stopped expecting to be hurt. I stopped locking away parts of my heart. Forgiveness did not make me weak. It made me lighter. The feeling was like setting down a heavy stone I had been carrying on my back for years, and turning around only then realizing how bent my shoulders had become and asking myself, why did I carry that weight for so long? I did not forget what happened. I did not pretend that it was okay. I kept my healthy distance. I remembered the lesson. But the difference was this: I no longer let that story control my present. Here is something unexpected. When I started forgiving, I was not just healing that one relationship, I was healing myself. I began to trust again, not blindly but wisely. I learned how to set boundaries. I learned to say no when something did not feel right. I stopped trying to please everyone, and I started living in a way that made me feel peaceful. And then one ordinary afternoon, while making a cup of tea, I suddenly realized it had been a long time since I last mentioned their name. Not because I tried to forget, but because my heart no longer hurt. If you have stayed with me this far, then maybe you too are carrying some kind of pain. Maybe it is a wound that is not healed, a relationship that will never return to what it once was. Someone who hurt you so deeply that you stopped believing in kindness? I do not know exactly what you are holding, but I know this. You do not have to keep carrying it. Forgiveness does not mean what happened was okay. It does not mean you approve of their actions. It does not mean your pain was small or insignificant. Forgiveness is simply a choice, a decision to stop letting the past drain the energy from your present moment. Forgiveness is a gift you give yourself. It is the quiet declaration, I deserve to feel lighter than this. I deserve peace. There's a quote I carry in my heart. The truly strong person is not the one who seeks revenge, but the one who dares to set down the stone of resentment they have been carrying for far too long. Setting it down is not easy, but carrying it forever is far heavier. If you are tired, if you have been holding on for too long, then maybe it is time to let go. Not to forget, but to live the rest of your life fully with a softer heart and a clearer gaze. Forgive not because they deserve it, but because you deserve to heal. Let go, not because the past did not matter, but because you matter more than the pain ever will. If there is something in your heart you are ready to release, I invite you to share it in the comments. You do not need to explain it all. You do not need to name names. Just write, I am learning to let go. And I believe somewhere out there, hundreds of others will be silently sending you love, rooting for your healing, and walking beside you on this quiet, courageous journey toward peace.